everybody.
Hi, friends. Well, from insanely hot Salt Lake City, Utah,
It's Thank God I'm Atheist.
the podcast.
I'm Frank Feldman.
And I'm Dan Beecher.
And coming up on the show today, Dan, there's a new photo out of Joseph Smith. Actually, it's an old photo.
The founder of the Mormon Church, of whom, until this moment, we didn't have photographic evidence.
Yeah. But now we do.
All we had was paintings to tell us what he looked like. And we will let you know at the end of the show how accurate those paintings were.
Ooh, that's quite the tease. You're going to have to...
Yeah, did I do it?
Yeah. You'll be surprised.
Later in the show, the one simple one simple trick to find out if Joseph Smith looked like his painting.
Wow, I have to click on something right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Where do I click?
I've baited you with clickbait.
Oh my God, you're really good at it too, Dan. But first, we've got some stories. Dan, did you hear about this up in Canada, specifically Newfoundland and Labrador?
Oh, those aren't real places. Don't just make up places.
Well, they've got the Supreme Court of Newfoundland and Labrador. And that court has approved the sale of 43 Catholic Church properties, the proceeds from which will go to settle abuse victims' claims.
Wow.
And so they are being seized and sold off.
Against the will of the Catholic Church.
Very much so, yeah.
Oh my God,
This
that's
is
amazing.
Amazing.
Let's just keep doing that. Let's just keep taking their stuff.
Yeah. Among the 43 properties are 13 churches. So what seems to be happening is they're being sold off, right? And so the question is, who's buying? Who is buying these old churches?
I want to buy a Newfie church.
I know, right? Well, I'll get to that.
Do I have to? But can I? The problem with buying a church is it's in a place. I don't really want to go to Newfoundland.
I know.
Labrador.
So
I mean, I do, but I don't want to go. I don't want my real property to be there.
No, yeah, no. The archdiocese is being held liable for sexual and physical abuse that occurred at the Mount Cashel Orphanage. And this the sale of property is raising money to settle victim claims from the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And Ernst & Young, that's the big financial institution, has been appointed by the court as a monitor of the sale. And I don't know exactly what that means in legal terms, but information is available on Ernst & Young's website as to who's purchasing.
Sure.
There's apparently a quite iconic Basilica Cathedral, and there's Saint Bonaventure's College and Saint Bon's Forum. They're being sold to the Basilica Heritage Foundation, which has pledged to protect the historic properties. So that's interesting. So from some sort of maybe historical organization.
Boo, don't protect them. Ruin them.
Though, as far as I don't mind a cathedral. You know this, Dan. If a town has a prominent old cathedral that's part of its history, I'm fine with it being preserved.
Yeah.
I would be fine with even public funds going to preserving it if it's no longer, actually a religious place. If it's turned into a community amenity of some kind, right? Great.
Yeah. Or if it's a big, beautiful thing like Notre Dame,
yeah,
you got to preserve that, and just for tourists.
Sure. Yeah.
For all them tourists to come and gawk at.
Yeah. I have no problem with organizations getting together and preserving these things. And then there's various other organizations that are, there's the Archdiocesan Renewal Corporation, which has the local archbishop as one of the 3 directors. They purchased St. Thomas of Villanova Church and some vacant land. And
So they bought it back?
they bought it back. Somehow they raised funds in order to buy it back. But the point is that the victims are getting money, right?
Right.
And,
Absolutely.
And also that they're being forced to jump through hoops. And this is, they're getting to save their church, it sounds like. But it's costing them a ton of money to do it. It is a punishment, clearly. And then there's a bunch of properties that just are, let's see, how was it phrased? 19 of the 43 properties did not receive acceptable bids. And that includes St. Peter's Church, Mary Queen of the World Church, St. Paul's, a bunch of churches.
Yeah.
And then a number of vacant parcels of land, some church rectories, so forth and so on.
So what happens if they don't get an acceptable bid?
Bulldozers, I guess. I don't know. They just come in.
Interesting.
No, they'll probably just lower the price at some point, They got to get these things sold off. And they can't go back to,
Let's start a fund,
diocese.
like a GoFundMe, so that we can buy a church. Maybe not there, but I want a church that we can all defile. That we'll just throw parties in.
They go on the market every once in a while.
I know.
It's easy enough to pick up an old Mormon church, Every once in a while.
I don't know, man.
Every once in a while they come onto the market. Especially
Yeah,
here in
but
Salt
like
Lake.
the problem is you don't want to buy real property from an organization or a person who has literally all the money in the world. You have no bargaining power.
Well, yeah, but if the price is right,
Yeah,
But nonetheless, Mormon churches are boring.
they're terrible.
If we were going to buy a church, I want like a cool old church. I don't
Yeah,
want a Mormon church.
no,
They're lame.
literally the worst. Literally the worst. Unforgivably bad.
Yeah.
Just no grandeur, no anything. Well, I'm going to pivot. I was going to do a different story first, but I'm going to piggyback off of your story.
Okay.
Because the other thing about the Catholics in Canada that has been in the news lately, we've talked about it, is that they basically did not do right by the indigenous peoples of Canada at all,
Yeah.
the Catholic Church. And it has recently come to light the scope of how awful it was. People kind of vaguely knew that there were bad things that happened. They did not realize, literally up until the 60s and 70s, the 1960s and 70s, we're not going back to the 1800s here, they were scooping up children out of First Nations homes and taking them away from their families and putting them into schools where they would be indoctrinated into white culture, but also not treated like white people. They would be beaten. They were frequently sexually abused. And it turns out just murdered left and right.
Yeah.
Maybe not in the 60s and 70s, but these schoolyards turn out to be just chock-a-block full of bodies. And every time they go to one, they've been doing like, I don't know what, whether it's radar or somehow they're probing down into the dirt with whatever tech, and finding all of these unmarked dead bodies of the children that they stole. So not a great look for the Catholic Church, they're
not putting it in the brochure.
Yeah, and not great for the Canadian government either.
Well,
the Canadian government has been working very hard to make some amends, including when I was recently in Canada and went to the Parliament building in Ottawa. They have a projection thing that they do at night that's projected up onto the Parliament building, which is interesting. The show itself is boring. It's a bunch of history and whatever. But what they do dedicate time in that show to, like, oh, we did bad by these people.
Yeah.
So that's good. Pope Francis has also made some efforts to sort of make to apologize and make some mea culpa-ing. And one of the things that they did, so he's actually literally about to fly to Canada.
Okay.
And literally apologize on Canadian soil. He's already apologized. Now he's going to do it on Canadian soil. That's good. He also recently invited a consortium of First Nations people, of Indigenous Canadians, to come to the Vatican. And one of the things that they did for these people when they sort of gave them a tour was showed them a display, a whole bunch of Indigenous American artwork that they have. They have collections of art and handicraft from around the world. Artifacts, things like carved walrus ivory and
Oh wow.
and various ornate headdresses, that sort of thing. The indigenous people were like, did you have permission to take that?
Can we see some receipts?
Do you know? Because what really happened is that this was sent, most of this stuff was sent to the Vatican by missionaries who were out in the field.
Right.
And the church is claiming these were gifts from, the indigenous people. But, they don't, that wasn't how it worked in the 19th and 20th centuries. They took, is what they did.
Oh, no.
So these indigenous people are kind of saying, hey, we want them back.
Thanks for showing us your treasures.
Yeah. Really appreciate
there are
that.
Treasures.
Those quote unquote gifts, I think we want them back. So
Wow.
that may have been a calculated error on the part of the Vatican to even show them. But
what else you got over there, Pope?
Yeah. I mean, let it be known to any indigenous people that think they may have been, looted by Europeans, which obviously that's a very uncommon thing to have happen. It's not like the Europeans just went around the earth plundering like wild people.
It was a different
you might want to check in,
Dan. There were different sensibilities.
Like theft is okay if you're white.
Nobody minded. Nobody cared. Nobody cared.
People still think theft is okay if you're white and rich. I forgot about that. Anyway, I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah. They made a mistake.
Yeah.
And they were so proud. They were like, you know what? They're going to really love this.
This is going to go well.
All right, Dan. Oh, God. Speaking of things not going well, Afghanistan. Where in the recent developments...
Does that country still exist?
Yeah, there's something there. Although the Taliban is doing their best to dismantle any sort of functioning bureaucracy or whatnot, it seems like.
But they promised that they would be nice.
Yeah, I know, but they're like now they immediately upon taking power, we know this, they told women who worked in public sector jobs to go home. You're not wanted here.
Yeah.
We'll continue to pay you until we really figure things out. The pay is just a fraction of what they had been receiving in their jobs. And now the latest development is that they're contacting these women, specifically the women who this article that I've found specifically the women who worked in the finance ministry. They're reaching out and they're saying, send us a man to do your job so we can fire you.
We need you to find your replacement, please.
Yeah.
Make sure he's qualified.
Yeah. The issue is that they won't be qualified.
No.
These men will not have the training nor the experience to go into these positions that these women worked in for who knows how long, right?
Right.
The article goes into the experience of one of these women who, let's see, she was talking about how she worked on the job for like 10, 15 years, right? And she said, how can I easily introduce someone else to replace me? Would he be able to work as efficiently as I have for so many years? This is a difficult and technical position that I was trained for and have years of experience in. And even if he could do the same work eventually, what would happen to me? Right? She's the one who worked for the position.
I have bad news for you on that front.
Yeah.
What would happen to you is not on anybody's mind but yours.
Yeah. No, that's true. So essentially what they're doing is this is all part of shifting full responsibility of women to men. And essentially women belong to men. And in some cases, so let's see, this is a quote from an assistant researcher with the Women's Rights Division at the Human Rights Watch. And they say that within the Taliban's misogyny, women belong to men as property and as an object representing the honor of the family. Therefore, in some cases like this, they give women's jobs and titles to women's male relatives. And in other cases, like the hijab, they punish women's close male relatives for women's public conduct and clothing. Get them in line, right, is the message.
Yeah.
You do this. You do whatever you need to do, but get your woman in line. And the male guardians are often fined and jailed, especially in the case of the hijab. It's bizarro, twisted view of the world, obviously.
It's less than ideal.
Yeah. And so that's what's going on over there in that part of the world that we have some responsibility for.
Yeah. I wish I could say that
as a nation.
I don't know what it feels like for a country to be completely regressing into basically heinously medieval, but I do know what that feels like.
I would be a little careful with that. Like we're
I don't know what it feels like Afghanistan-ly. Like
just United Stately.
Just United Stately, which feels like a lot, but you're right. It's not. It's certainly not as much as the Afghans are dealing with.
Yeah, and don't worry, Dan. You're a man.
Oh yeah, I'm straight and white and male. I got it all. Nothing can touch me.
I just hope nobody finds these recordings.
Right? Oh yeah. Don't you guys? When the shit hits the fan, don't tell about the show.
It never happened.
Yeah, exactly.
Because believe me, we'll stop paying that monthly hosting fee as soon as the shit hits the fan. It's gone, people.
Oh my god. Yeah, that's not true. We won't turn our backs on you. I promise. No. So I'm going to take us to Europe. That's a continent. I'm sure you've heard of it, where a statement was written and adopted by 22. Maybe 24 countries. It was, or maybe it was 23. It was the UK and 22 other countries.
Ah, okay. Because they're not technically Europe anymore, right?
What's that?
Nothing.
Oh, they're not in the EU.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think continentally they're still European. No?
I don't know. Anyway.
Well, they're not. It's true that they're not of the continent. They're an island unto themselves. Anyway, the UK and the Netherlands helped craft a statement of international human rights.
Oh, okay.
And these countries all signed on to it. And it was nice and, whatever. And then the UK released the statement as part of an international ministerial conference on freedom of religion or belief. They released the statement. But the fact that they did it for this freedom of religion or belief conference, they removed a bunch of language about sexual and reproductive health and rights and bodily autonomy.
Ooh. Okay.
Which is a little bit... It's a bit much. It's not cool when you've had 22 other countries sign on to a thing.
Yeah.
And then you just delete some of the language in it for your own purposes.
Especially some of the good language.
Yeah. Some very important language.
Yeah.
Which it's kind of inexplicable. What are you doing, UK? Why are, literally, yes, a lot of interesting things come out of the US, but do not take all of our shit. Just because we're doing something doesn't mean you should do it too. If we're taking away sexual and reproductive health and rights and bodily autonomy,
it's kind of
do not follow our lead on that.
No, it's our thing. That's our thing right
That's
now.
for us. You don't get it.
None of this copycat stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yikes. So a few other nations have raised some eyebrows. Norway and Denmark have approached the UK and the Netherlands, who are the chair and co-chair of the International Religious Freedom or Belief Alliance, to ask, hey, what the fuck, you guys? So, this is the thing that's happening. We don't have a lot of statements yet. But yes, the question has been raised because, holy shit, what are you doing? Whatever it is you're doing, UK, you stop it right now.
Bad UK.
That is bad. You are bad. You're being bad.
Go do a timeout.
Somebody in Europe roll up a newspaper and bop the UK with it. Just right in the nose. You just got to get it. You just say no.
Yeah, you got to do it in the moment. Right. You can't.
Oh, that's true. You got to catch them in the act, catch them doing it, and then you bop them and you say no.
Do not bop anyone in the nose when they've piddled somewhere in your house. Thank you. I'm just going to say that. Violence, Dan, you were advocating violence toward animals.
No, I was
And
advocating
UK.
violence toward British people, and that is okay.
It sounded a little bit like we were talking about training a dog there for a minute. But
All I'm saying is it's not what's not okay for a dog might be okay for a Brit.
alrighty. Oh, Dan, here's another goddamn stupid blasphemy story gone wrong.
Oh no.
Pakistan. Dun dun dun.
Well, yeah, of course it's going to go wrong in Pakistan.
Jesus Christ. They've got this law in the books. That mandates capital punishment for convictions of Pakistan's blasphemy laws.
Yeah.
And boy, they love to use it. It's a big deal. They love it.
It's not a law that's on the books because of some ancient thing and they just haven't bothered to take it off. No, that's one of their favorite laws.
Yeah. And so this is a story about an incident that happened in 2017. A man who owned a bicycle repair shop. His name is Ashfaq Masih. I'm okay. This story and the names are I'm going to try to guide us through it because 3 of the people are named Muhammad, of course. And one of them has the last name for the other person's first name. And it's just like, okay, whatever. Anyway, Ashfaq Masih was 36 years old at the time, Pentecostal.
He was a Christian. That's a bad start.
Yeah. And a man by the name of Muhammad Irfan had the bicycle shop owner do some work for him. And when he went to go pick up his bike, he refused to pay, saying that he was a devotee of Muslim Sufis and saints, and saying that I don't know what his reasoning was, but somehow that meant he didn't have to pay this this Christian bicycle shop owner.
That is a useful theology.
Yeah. And so Masih rejected that request, of course, and saying that he only followed Jesus and wasn't interested in Irfan's religious status as a Muslim. Well, that got blown out of proportion.
Wrong response.
The police, after Muhammad Irfan goes and tells a competing bicycle shop owner who is Muslim about the incident, the bicycle shop owner gets together with Masih's landlord, who's also Muslim, and they report him to the police, accusing him of disrespecting Muhammad,
right,
and saying that he had said something along the lines of Christ was the only true prophet, which that's alleged in sort of the court case. Anyway, so all of this story. Okay, let me finish the story. Actually, Masih ends up obviously arrested. 5 years later, just this last week, he is sentenced to death by hanging for for blasphemy against Islam and Muhammad. And so, but this is apparently just sort of how things work in Pakistan. Is that it's very easy to accuse somebody of blasphemy, and it is reported. Now, this comes through Christian media, so let's take it with a little grain of salt. But nonetheless, I'm inclined to believe it. That this is a tactic that people use in the process of, like, if they have a disagreement with a Christian, they get them riled up about religion, and then they accuse them of blasphemy.
This is how witch hunts work.
Yeah, exactly. And so there are a lot of... So apparently what they expect to have happen now is they will, contest the verdict, and it'll go up to higher courts. And usually the higher courts tend to be a little more reasonable in these cases than the lower level courts that have judges that are from these communities, and the judges want nothing to do with innocent verdicts. No. And so they have every interest to say that the person's guilty and just send it to the higher courts. Because oftentimes these blasphemy cases lead to riots in the streets. And it's just like, what in the fuck, people?
Yeah.
Islam, get your act together. This is ridiculous.
Well, it's all the religions, right? Like, if you let them get too fundamentalist, and if you let them get too... This is what's happening in the U.S. This is why we have to fight so hard. Right. Because literally, the Christian right is trying to create a Christo-fascist state that is exactly the same.
They would love
this. Like, literally, the thing that they want is Pakistan.
Yeah. And it's the thing that, boy, they spend a lot of time and energy in the Christian media riling Christians up about when it's not their way. Right. They're going to be fine when it's their way, when it's here.
It's literally just you change the names on the story and they'll be thrilled.
Yeah. But honestly, also Pakistan, like, come up with another first name rather than just Muhammad. Like, I get it. I know it's a tradition, but like, they have Muhammad, they have Mahmud, they have like, it's all the same thing. And it's like, how do you keep track?
Oh my God. Okay. Now there's a fatwa on us. I hope you're happy.
Because I made fun
We were
of
doing okay, and then you put down the
conventions?
first name Muhammad, and then everybody's gonna jihad us.
I mean, if this is the thing that finally gets us in trouble,
Right? You're like, too many Muhammads, and suddenly now
they're like, how dare you insult
they're
my
doxing
name?
us and firebombing our homes or whatever.
I mean, it's possible.
Causing floods
Yeah.
in our houses. Anyway, well, interestingly, I'm going to close this off with a story of something very small going a little bit right in our country? Question mark?
What?
Yeah. So, this will stand in stark contrast to what I just said. But in Jefferson Circuit Court in Kentucky, a judge has actually has done an injunction putting a halt to, temporarily, Kentucky's attempt at making abortion illegal. Now, of course, once Roe v. Wade got struck down by our Christo-fascist Supreme Court here in these United States, a lot of states, red states, rushed to outlaw abortion as quickly as they could, and Kentucky was no different. So they had the Human Life Protection Act and a heartbeat law, and these were all passed in 2019 as trigger laws. But a couple of abortion clinics sued to have it stopped, and a judge actually did put an injunction in place saying that no, you can't enact these laws until this gets adjudicated. What stands out on this is the judge's reasoning for it, which is that it is based entirely on Christian and Catholic belief.
Oh, wow.
Which that's always been very obvious.
Right. But a judge in Kentucky says so?
But for a judge in Kentucky to actually say it as bluntly as that, literally, this is a quote, "This is a distinctly Christian and Catholic belief. Other faiths hold a wide variety of views when it comes to when life begins, and at what point a fetus should be recognized as an independent human being." I'm gonna continue with the quote because it's actually kind of amazing.
Okay.
He went on to say, while numerous faith traditions embrace the concept of, quote, ensoulment, S-O-U-L, or the acquisition of personhood, there are myriad views on when and how this transformation occurs. The laws at issue here adopt the view embraced by some, but not all, religious traditions that life begins at the moment of conception. And goes on to say the General Assembly is not permitted to single out and endorse the doctrine of a favored faith for preferred treatment. Wow. This is exactly the right thing. This is how our law should be interpreted.
How did this person become a judge in Kentucky?
Right?
With such
slipped through the cracks, I guess.
Radical ideas.
Right, radical, like, actual law. Like, constitutional law being practiced here. What's going on? How did he make it through?
There are some people right now trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So anyway,
do we know
that's
anything
there.
about this judge? Because I am actually kind of curious. Like,
well, I literally don't know anything. This is Judge Mitch Perry.
Okay.
And no, I don't know much about Mitch.
Yeah.
Other than he got this one as right as he could get it and literally minced no words. Like boldly just stated it. And then I think that this language, there's a little bit of language that I think is a fucking direct dig at the Supreme Court, which I love. Because the Supreme Court, you know, Samuel Alito's ruling on Roe v. Wade, like overturning Roe v. Wade, basically said, hinged on the idea that any law that, you know, or any decision that the Supreme Court makes must be based on, you know, what the tradition of the time was and all of this stuff. And it was literally, it was a complete reversal of, you know, more than half a century of, well over half a century of jurisprudence and how jurisprudence works in this country. Mm-hmm. And this guy takes a dig at it. He says, there is nothing in our laws or history that allows for such theocratic-based policymaking, which I fucking love. I love that he's calling it out as theocratic. I love that he's calling it out as just being based on one religious tradition. That is exactly the truth.
Yeah.
That is all this is. And I think that that's kind of amazing. And, you know, somebody said it at least.
Yeah. Oh, good.
So I fully expect all of that to be shot down in higher courts and for their law to go into place and Kentuckians to have to go to other states if they need abortions. But for now, Kentuckians, go ahead and get your abortions while they're hot, because that's going to be going away soon.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you would like to tell us more about this judge or talk to us about any of the things we've spoken about so far, you can please write into us. We sure do like it when you do. Podcast at thankgodimatheist.com.
Or call and leave us a voicemail message. The telephone number is 424-666-8442. Stick around. There is more show coming up.
Hey, Frank.
Man.
Listen, you and I have been unfair.
What?
And we need to call ourselves out on it.
Okay.
We have said multiple times that a whole bunch of prophets who very clearly said into microphones on video prophecies about various things, but very specifically, a lot of them went all in on Donald Trump's going to win the election, and he's going to remain president and all this stuff. And then
they had a 50-50 chance, more or less.
I mean,
because
you know,
close.
Depending on what polls you believe, they may have had a slightly better than 50-50 chance, depending on when they said it. Anyway, they were wrong about that, or so we thought.
Oh, okay.
And so we just thought that they were they were pretending they never said it, which is sort of the thing that prophets do when they get a miss, is that they just like don't ever talk about it again. And if they get a hit, they talk about it endlessly forever and never shut up about how they predict, how the Lord helped them predict some magical thing to happen in the future. But yes, with these binary outcome events, it's not that tricky. You pick one, and if it didn't happen, you just shut your mouth. And if it does happen, you never stop talking about it.
Yep. All right.
Or the third option, which Kent Christmas decided to do, which was to address the issue. So here's how we were wrong for calling him out on not on his prophecy being literally factually false.
Okay.
The problem with so many Christians is they don't understand prophecy. I had people email me and say, you are a false prophet because you prophesied that Donald Trump would be voted back in. I did, and he was. Now, if you really want to deal with this, how about the fact that you stole it from them and you put somebody else in there illegally? But in the eyes of God in the court of heaven today, the President of the United States is Donald J. Trump. That's all I prophesy. That's what God said.
I think, Frank, that there's another secret way that he's weaseling out of this. Not just that he's claiming that in the court of heaven it came true.
Cool.
Which is a great weasel.
Yeah.
Good job.
Like, I don't know what that means for somebody to be president of the United States in the court of heaven. Like, that seems like even kind of a fairly empty gesture by God, right? Like,
yeah. Even by God's standards.
Like, that's just what God does for, like, the loser, right? He's like, oh,
I love...
don't worry. In the court of heaven, where I reign supreme, you can be president of the United States.
I love the idea of an omnipotent God who's like, tells his servant, it's cool. You can say this, 100% certainty, no problem. And then they steal, like, even if it was stolen, obviously it wasn't. It's very clear that there was no voter fraud, blah, blah, blah. But even if it was stolen, God theoretically should have been able to stop that, right?
Yeah, probably.
Like,
he's kind of also
or either God could have accurately predicted a theft, or God could have prevented a theft, but instead he made his prophets on earth look like idiots. But here's the thing.
He does often let prophets hang out to dry. I will say that.
Yeah. Oh, he throws them right under the bus. Here's the other thing. I think he's tricking us.
Oh?
Because when I listened to that just now, I heard Kent Christmas, and you can go back and listen with your headphones on. Kent Christmas just said that Donald Trump was the president of the United States of America. I think he's just he's trying to get out on a technicality by not pronouncing him right.
Could also just be his accent.
Later he can say, I didn't say Donald Trump was going to be president of the United States of America. I was talking about the United States of America,
which are clearly
whose president very clearly is Donald Trump,
and is only something that's just heaven stuff. That's just up in heaven.
That's if you don't know where that is, you should check heaven, because that's where it is. We had some folks write into us and call into us. Josh wrote in to say he was talking about the story that you did about PrEP.
Oh, yeah.
You'll recall PrEP, for those of you who don't remember, is the cocktail of drugs that helps in keeping AIDS from transmitting.
HIV.
The universally good thing that is PrEP that some Christians are working tirelessly against, of course. And Josh wrote in to say, okay, this story about that stupid jackass trying to ban PrEP because employers have to subsidize gay sex or whatever has me fuming. How about that I don't want to subsidize their religion? Do I get a say in whether my tax dollars should pay for fire departments that put out church fires when the churches don't contribute to the tax base? How about I don't know, fact that Maine residents have to subsidize religious indoctrination under the guise of, quote, education? For that matter, why do I, as a happily childless gay guy, have to subsidize breeders? It's because we live in a goddamn society, for fuck's sake. We have a social contract whereby sometimes you don't like what the other person does, but you recognize their right to do it. Okay, I'll calm down. Just fuck the theocracy.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yep. Let's play a voicemail. We got a voicemail.
Yeah.
Who's the first one?
Rabbi Gruber, longtime writer to the
Deep
show.
Friend of the show.
Called and left a voicemail message. There was we sort of mispronounced something, so he corrected us.
Oh, okay. Good to know.
Hey, Frank and Dan, this is David Gruber. I don't think I've ever left you a message. I have sent you emails. Anyway, nothing really having to do with Jewish knowledge, but it is pronounced Aotearoa. Okay, New Zealand, the actual name of New Zealand that the Maoris called it is Aotearoa. and the greeting that you guys were trying to say is pronounced Kiora. Okay? So just thought I should help there since I lived in the damn place for about 2 years back in the day. Anyway, hope all's well. Keep up the great work, guys.
Wow. Yeah. Rabbi Gruber coming in for his first voicemail and helping us pronounce something that
I still don't know how to pronounce.
Still don't know. Yeah, okay. Thank you, though. No, I mean, it's actually great.
It's good to hear your voice.
And good to hear from you. However, I was certain when I found out that there was a voicemail from Rabbi Gruber, I was certain he was calling in to talk about the Haredi, the Israeli ultra-Orthodox Jews and their kosher cell phones. But he did not.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to turn to Stu, the fallen away Jew, who wrote in just to say, regarding your story about the Haredi Jews in Israel and the kosher cell phones, the first thing I did when I fell away was to get a treif, I don't know how you say that, aka non-kosher cell phone. Now I can order pork rinds, cheeseburgers, and shrimp. I can also surf the web for naughty pictures like girls with their ankles showing and write emails to you guys. Woohoo! Cute. We got another voicemail, correct?
Yes, a caller from Australia. Recounting.
We're just back and forth between here and Oceania today.
And he shares a story sort of growing up as a non-religious child. Lucky him.
Okay.
Hi, Frank and Dan. I'm Taylor. I'm calling from Western Australia, Perth. First of all, I love your show. Thank you so much. You bring me joy. I always listen to it when I'm working with all these fuckwits aside. I just wanted to tell you a story about, because I grew up in Japan, and my mum is Australian, my dad's Japanese, and they're not into Jesus and all that crap. And one time in Spain, I think I was about 8. My brother would have been 9 or something. And then, boom, all the nativity crap was all over the place. And apparently we asked Mum, my brother and I asked Mum, is that lamb Jesus? Which I thought was hilarious. But I haven't heard any, I haven't heard you and Frank ripping into the Japanese Shintoism or Buddhism and all that crap. And I'd like your opinion on that part as well, if possible. But anyway, thank you. Have a good day.
Well, thanks, Taylor.
Yeah.
That's lovely. It's fun to hear international voices.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, yes, of course Jesus is a lamb. I don't know why they keep painting him as a human. That's ridiculous. It says so right in the Bible. Anyway, the second thing is, Frank, why don't we shit on Shinto and Buddhists?
Oh, I know nothing about that stuff. I think it's probably just lack of familiarity, right? Like,
well, we don't get a lot of news stories from there.
No, that's true.
I think send us in some news stories. We'll shit on those guys.
Yeah,
I'm sure they do shitty, awful things.
Right. I mean, I know there's been a story or two through the years.
Yeah, definitely.
It just, it doesn't pop up on my radar.
They're pretty few and far between.
If you go to Christian news sources to find stuff to shit on, like, you're going to be shitting on Christian news.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember us shitting on Buddhists, but not like Japanese Zen Buddhists, just because the story was out of Myanmar and it was about the Rohingya and all of that stuff.
Sure.
That's where Buddhists are being dickheads right now.
Yeah.
Is that Myanmar? That's Myanmar, right?
Sounds right.
Okay. Maybe I got it wrong. We'll see. Anyway, I don't know. Frankly, my personal view is that mostly I don't really have a problem with Buddhists and Shinto. I think it's interesting that most people in Japan think of themselves as kind of both. and that's kind of fascinating to me. Like, one is for alive things, and one is for just like, death and talking to your ancestors or whatever. That's my very basic understanding. I'm sure I'm wrong, but it is interesting that people like can just be both. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, growing up in a Christian, setting, boy, you can't be more than just some narrow version of Christianity. Like, that's
can't be more than one.
Yeah.
How dare you?
Like, you can't even be Baptist and Methodist at the same time.
Right? Yeah, exactly. And why would you want to?
Yeah.
Actually. Anyway, send us some stories. We'll look into them. If something shitty's going down, we love to poop on people. But yeah, that's probably the only reason that we aren't talking about them. All right. Do we have some folks to thank?
We do, Dan. We have some new patrons over on Patreon. We have a new deacon by the name of Stuart.
Ooh.
Thank you, Stuart. We have a
Thanks,
new
Stu.
teacher by the name of Larry. And we have a new priest by the name of Fred from Colorado, who has a very interesting last name. Keep Colorado an abortion access haven with LGBTQ legal protection.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Fred.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Congrats to all of these fine people on their newfound magic powers, their priesthood powers. They now can be prophets every bit as powerful as Kent Christmas. So good for you. And thank you guys so much for supporting our show. If anybody else out there would care to join the ranks of the people who give us a little bit of money, throw a little bit of coin our way, you choose how much. It can be a lot too. It's up to you. You just go to thankgodimatheist.com and click on the support tab, and then we are grateful to you forever. So that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
And we got one more person to thank.
We do indeed, Dan. We have our top donor to thank, our Lord and Savior, Davis. Stick around. There's more show coming up.
Well, Frank,
Dan.
you and I, our listeners know that you and I used to be Mormons.
Mm-hmm.
We were raised in the covenant of Mormonism.
That's true, yeah. I guess so.
And the world of Mormonism was rocked this week. There was an announcement that has all of Mormonism and even ex-Mormons just a-buzzing. And that is the release of the only known photograph of the founder of that lunatic church, Joseph Smith.
Yeah. It's startling, right? How do you find a photo 100, and going on 200 years, 180 years after the fact? It's really remarkable, but the provenance of this thing sort of checks out. I don't know that we need to get into that, but the article, it makes a lot of sense. A direct descendant had a little locket that they knew came from the family line, down through the family line, and he prized the thing open.
It had never been opened. It was bent shut.
Yeah. And then because it had been sealed in, the photo was in great shape, hadn't been exposed to light in a very long time.
Yeah.
And so it's this really clear image of this guy. Yeah. It's amazing.
Daguerreotype of Joseph himself. And okay, so I'm going to paint a picture for you all, just so that you know the Joseph that we were raised with.
Right.
In multiple paintings, and none of them really look like each other. There's no two that make you go, okay, I know what this man looked like.
But you can always pick out certain features. Right?
Sure. But he always had this sort of boyish look to him.
Mm-hmm.
He always looked, he died in what? He didn't even make it to 40, did he?
He was 38 years old when he was killed. Yeah.
So he was a young-ish person when he died. Mm-hmm. He always looked young. He was definitely always painted handsome.
Oh,
or at
always.
least, and sometimes more handsome than others. Some of the imagery and iconography got a little liberal with that. On the church's own website, there's an amazing image of this strapping, handsome, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, just snack of a guy.
Yeah.
Turns out, no. Turns out, not so much a snack as a, oh my God, that's terrifying. At least to my eyes. He's, a lot of, it's very funny because the ex-Mormon side of social media kind of was all about, like, this guy is giving serial killer vibes. This is a Ted Bundy look. I'm not good with this. In part because ex-Mormons also recognize that that's the face of a man who literally married and had sex with teenagers, children.
Right. Yeah.
The youngest
it's easy
being,
to see the bad parts of his countenance.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's got sort of piercing blue eyes. They look almost white in the photograph.
Yeah, they're not really. You don't really, because obviously it's black and white. Everyone.
Yeah.
I don't know if you picked up on that. Yeah. So you can just barely see sort of the color of his eyes. His eyes must have been very, very, very light.
Yeah.
But it's a far more sort of traditionally masculine face than I would have expected.
True.
Because we're presented this, sort of boyish version, this young man, this kind of, he's sort of always presented in like his 20s, right? That's as old as any painting has ever shown him to be, as far as I can tell, right? And then this comes along and he's very much a man, right?
Yeah.
With sort of this, with broad, manly features.
But yeah, it's sort of a strong jaw and
Prominent brow and
prominent brow.
Yeah.
He does have little poodle tufts of hair on the sides over his ears, which I think is adorable.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's scary. It's a little creepy.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, what's also kind of scary and creepy is that the active Mormon side of the Twitter sphere and the various social medias, there's been a bunch of women of people who have come out and been like, "Oh, so handsome," and I'm just like, "Yee, stranger danger! No, you need to look better. You need to look a little bit with a little less biased eyes."
Yeah. I mean, because I can definitely, if you hold the two portrayals or the two versions up, right? You have the Mormon portrayal and then you have like actual, like, captured image that's, real.
Right.
And there's one that it's hard to sort of imagine that he raped, 14-year-old girls.
Yeah.
And the other one, it's like, okay, yeah, sure. He looks like a guy from the mid 1800s. I don't necessarily get like the murdery rapist vibes, but it's like, well, I can see a real human being there who's not being softened. His image is not being softened.
Yeah, he's not being lionized by the painter.
Yeah.
It's not an artist's rendition of a good and holy man. It's just a photograph of a weirdo.
Right. Yeah. But he doesn't have crazy eyes. Like, you don't look at it and go, "Oh, Jesus Christ,"
Really? I do.
I don't think he has crazy eyes.
They are piercing into my soul, and it's just a picture. He's looking deep, deep into me, and I'm very uncomfortable with it.
That's interesting. Because I've seen like crazy-eyed photos from the 1800s, and those people are serious, right? Like,
Well, there's that.
right. Like, and this just looks like a guy who's, having to sit and hold still for, an ungodly amount of time to get a clear image.
Oh, it's just a few seconds. I don't know. It is a very interesting thing. I mean, again, one of the most interesting parts of this is that what it's forcing people to do is take something that was ethereal and that was non-concrete in their lives and face the concrete reality of the thing.
Yeah.
And I think I honestly think a lot of members probably look at it and go, and like secretly in their hearts, they don't say it out loud, but just look at it and go, ugh.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's an adjustment, and it's definitely that's Joseph Smith.
Yeah.
Huh. And what's great is that, if you think about, say, like Brigham Young, of whom there were, plenty of photographs.
Yes.
Right? Plenty of images. He gets, represented as Brigham Young. You have an idea of what he looks like, right?
Right.
But Joseph Smith, now, do they go back and revise shit? Do they actually have artists look at this image in order to,
No.
paint the prophet? Because it's clear that they did do that with with his death mask. Because if you look at the death mask and has a kind of this more tapered face that goes down to a more narrow jaw. I mean, you actually look at it and it's like, oh no, the man had a chin, right?
Yeah.
That was, that was present. And then, but you look at a lot of these other paintings, or a couple of them, and it's just this much more sort of refined, narrower, features that they clearly want to they got it from somewhere, but they also want to play it up, that he's just sort of this dignified, refined figure. Whereas I look at this other one, and if he was out working in the field, I wouldn't be surprised, right? That's a man who knew physical labor, probably.
Yeah. That could totally be a miner coming off of a shift or something.
Totally. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. I think somebody online compared his looks to Jeffrey Epstein.
Oh wow.
I was like, yeah, I mean, I get it, because they both, were about, and they both did bad things with children. And then I looked at him and I was like, oh, but also, ooh, what I don't think we should do is now say, oh, there are some features that mean you're a pedophile.
No.
But there's something there. Anyway, go look it up. It's he's a creep, and he started, and now there's a whole bunch of people who, there's according to them 14 million people who believe in the church that creep started. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Just weird. It's just weird. We were raised with a totally different guy, and now here's this guy.
Yeah. No, I know it's weird. But more than 14, Dan, because there's all the offshoots that also claim him.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. I mean, the owner of this locket that had the photograph is from the Community of Christ.
Right.
Which makes sense, because the Community of Christ was the break-off offshoot, or they claimed that the ones that we call Mormons now are the break-off offshoot.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, they were when there was a schiz, they were the one that Joseph Smith's wife, Emma, and his son, Joseph Smith III, founded this other religion. So
yeah, and stayed back in Missouri.
Yeah,
whereas
and apparently passed down heirlooms, including photographs that have just never been seen for 100 years.
Yeah.
Well, there you go, kids. If the founder of your religion was creepy, you can write into us and tell us about it. Podcast@thankgodimatheist.com.
Or call and leave us a voicemail message. The telephone number is 424-666-8442.
Hey, go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/TGIAtheist. Click the like button, just for fun.
And if you'd like to join one of our members-only lounges, you can do so. Go to thankgodimatheist.com/members-only.
Yeah! Hey, thanks so much to the Red Rock Hot Club for the use of their fine music.
And thanks to Gordon Johnston for the use of his music.
And thanks to all of you for tuning in. We sure do appreciate you.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.